The death of Liam Payne is haunting. He was a young man with his whole life ahead of him, and it all ended in the blink of an eye. This was where he spent his final moments, in a hotel room in Argentina, far away from home. He was angry, upset, and alone, and it led to an awful series of events that ended his life. But he didn't get to that point by chance. Liam had been struggling for a very long time, longer than most people ever realized, and it all traces back to a band he joined when he was an innocent and hopeful teenager. In 2010, 5 young men auditioned individually for the X Factor UK. For most of them, it was their first time on the show, but for Liam, it was his second shot. He'd auditioned 2 years prior when he was 14 years old, impressing the judges in his first audition with his charisma and voice.
I like you, I think you're really cute. I think you've got charisma. You know, you give us that little cheeky wink. Yes.
Yes. You've got 3 yeses. Get through.
He also got through the next stage of the competition called boot camp, before eventually being turned away at the judges' houses stage, right before making it to the live shows. Simon, despite recognizing his ability, felt he wasn't quite there yet and told him to come back when he was older. So that's what he did 2 years later at the age of 16, auditioning along with Harry Styles, Zayn Malik, Niall Horan, and Louis Tomlinson. All of the boys gave it their best shot as solo acts, but the competition was tough and they each failed to advance. Luckily, however, the judges saw an opportunity to put them together to form a boy band.
Zayn.
Now that is a good idea. Oh my god. That's the category I want, is them.
Grouping them immediately boosted their appeal. Each of them had their own character and charm, so the group offered something for everyone. And very quickly, they built a significant fan base.
It was like one of those moments where, you know, luck just plays in your favor. You know, they were leaving the competition. I literally, on a whim, said, you know what, these 5 guys, I think they should be in a band.
The boys had a lot of chemistry from the outset, not only as friends, but also as performers. And this translated into a wildly successful run on the show. Week after week, they performed well in the public votes, and the hysteria around them just kept growing. Each boy began to take on their own role in the group, and Liam's, at least at this time, was that of the responsible leader.
Who is the sensible one then? Who's the Gary Barlow here?
Sorry, Liam Payne.
His prior experience on the show gave him a maturity and confidence the others didn't quite have, which led to him often taking charge in interviews and taking on prominent parts in their songs. In total, the boys competed on the live shows for 7 weeks, ultimately finishing in 3rd place behind 2 solo singers. Although this might have been disappointing at the time, the acts who've gone on to have the most successful careers from the X Factor are rarely the actual winners, and Simon knew this. He decided to sign the group to his record label Psycho Music shortly after the show ended, and it quickly became clear that he bet on the right horse. One Direction's first album debuted at #1 on the US Billboard 200, making them the first British group to debut atop the charts with their first album. It sold over 4.5 million copies globally and included hit singles like What Makes You Beautiful. Their following album, Take Me Home, debuted at #1 in over 35 countries, with songs like Live While We're Young and Little Things, cementing their reputation in the pop industry. They became a phenomenon, and the level of fan frenzy they generated is like nothing we've seen since. It was akin to what we saw with Justin Bieber or even the Beatles.
What's going to keep you grounded?
I think this is a really easy one because, like, there's a lot of banter that goes on in our group, and I think if anybody ever got like a bit like complacent ahead of themselves, then I think somebody would definitely bring them back into line. I think that's good to have each other around. And
as time went on, the dynamics in the group began to change. Liam, who in the early days had more of the spotlight due to his leader-type role, started to be overshadowed. This was at no fault of his own, but because fans naturally started gravitating towards 2 other members of the group, Harry Styles and Zayn Malik. Harry became known as the heartthrob and charismatic frontman due to his cheeky charm, good looks, and stage presence. He was very confident, and his distinctive, husky voice made him stand out. Management saw how popular he was and started prioritizing him over Liam when it came to song parts. Then with time, he became more prominent in interviews and media appearances, often taking on a representative role for the band. Eventually, more than any other member, it felt like One Direction needed Harry, and that without him, the band wouldn't be the same. Zayn, on the other hand, had a very different kind of appeal. He was known for his quieter, mysterious presence, often preferring to stay out of the spotlight. This gave him an enigmatic quality that intrigued fans and made them want to know more. His voice was unique and soulful, and he was known for his high notes and impressive range, which differentiated him from other members of the group. He also had the looks, which contributed at least in part to his popularity. I can only assume this shift toward Harry and Zayn wasn't easy to deal with for Liam, since at first he was the one favoured by Simon and management, but it's safe to say it was far from the worst of his problems. You see, during the time One Direction were together, they were criminally overworked. The band was known for releasing an album almost every single year while simultaneously embarking on world tours. From 2011 to 2015, they released 5 albums and went on multiple world tours without much downtime, and they were all barely adults. This took a big toll on all of them as they struggled to have a life outside of work, but some of them dealt with it a lot worse than others.
The problem we had in the band, and I don't blame anybody for this, I don't want to seem like I'm whining or moaning, oh my God, look at my life, whatever. But it feels to me like when we were in the band, the best way to secure us, because of how big it got, was just lock us in our rooms. And of course, what's in the room? Minibar. So at a certain point, I thought, well, I'm going to have a party for one. We were always locked in a room at night, and then it would be car, hotel room, stage, sing, locked. So it was like they pulled the dust cloth off, let us out for a minute, and then woohoo, and then he's like back underneath it, and I'm like, good.
In some clips from that time, there were clear warning signs that Liam was developing a problem.
Massive congratulations. How you? Oh, you've been
Steady on.
Thank you.
How much have you had to drink?
That's the question for you, Liam.
Nah, it probably is.
Definitely is.
Hey Liam, how are you feeling tonight, having won global
How are you
Success
feeling,
Award?
Liam?
I'll be honest, I'm feeling a little drunk. That's the first statement out there.
From the way Niall and Zayn reacted to his joke, you can tell Liam already had a habit of drinking too much, and from here it only got worse. In 2015, Zayn decided to leave the band to pursue a solo career. Although One Direction's pop sound was highly successful, Zayn was more interested in R&B and felt like he wasn't able to express himself creatively within the group. He also struggled with fame and was burnt out and stressed from their grueling schedule, saying he just wants to be a normal 22-year-old who is able to relax and have some private time out of the spotlight. His decision didn't go down well with Liam, who wanted things to stay as they were. The boys continued on as a four, but just 5 months later, they announced they'd be taking a hiatus after the release of their 5th album. They assured fans the hiatus would be temporary, but in the end, they never got back together. It was around this time that Liam got in a relationship with Cheryl Cole. If you remember from earlier, Liam met Cheryl during his first audition on The X Factor at 14 years old.
I like you. I think you're really cute.
There's a 10-year age gap between the two, so news of their romance sparked a lot of controversy, especially because Cheryl met him when he was underage. People thought it was weird, but they seemed happy together, at least at that point. In March 2017, Cheryl gave birth to their son, Bear. Liam was really happy to become a father, and despite their busy schedules, he and Cheryl initially appeared to navigate co-parenting well. However, the birth of Bear came at a time when Liam was launching his solo career. This put him under a lot of pressure and limited the amount of time he could spend with him. He felt like he needed to live up to the expectations set by his One Direction fame, which added to his anxiety. And in order to cope with everything that was going on, he turned to a familiar friend. Liam was constantly away from home and sinking deeper into his drinking habits, which caused severe strain on his relationship with Cheryl. And eventually, in mid-2018, it got to the point that they called it quits.
And I feel that's what, that's where I got to in my last relationship. I just wasn't given a very good version of me anymore that I didn't appreciate and I didn't like being.
It would have been nice to say that prioritizing his career in that time paid off, but it didn't, at least not in the way Liam hoped. His debut single, Strip That Down, was a commercial success, currently sitting on over 1 billion plays on Spotify, but his following singles didn't perform nearly as well. You see, when Harry and Zayn left the band, they had very clear directions they wanted to go in, rock and R&B. Both successfully reinvented themselves with their debut singles Sign of the Times and Pillow Talk, and went on to produce albums with a clear identity and theme. The same can be said of Niall, who released his breakthrough folk pop album Flicker, which had hits like Slow Hands. Liam, on the other hand, struggled to find any distinct sound. His singles jumped between pop, R&B and dance, making it hard for him to carve out a niche, and ultimately, when he released his debut album LP1 in 2019, it flopped. This in itself would be a tough thing to deal with, but seeing his old bandmates succeed where he failed must have made it 10 times harder. It was at this time that he started opening up more about his mental health, and it turned out to be a lot worse than anyone could have imagined.
People getting into you every day, like I say, just every so often you're like, when will they send? And then so, like, that's almost nearly killed me a couple of times.
As
when
in
I've been in a
you've
bad
wanted
place. Yeah, when I've been in a bad place, 100%, there's no point denying it. It's definitely been on the menu a couple of times in my life, and
this is enough. I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, 100%, man. When things start to pile on top of each other, that's when it can really get you. You've really got to change your view about it. There's only one thing you control within that situation, it is you.
After this, we were all plunged into the pandemic, which added to Liam's struggles. Lockdowns and isolation made him feel disconnected from his son and affected his ability to maintain relationships. It also affected his work, leading to cancelled plans and fewer career opportunities. He was cooped up inside, similar to how he was in hotel rooms during his days with One Direction, and I can only imagine that led to more drinking. When the world opened back up again and we started to see more of Liam, you could tell things weren't right. During the 2022 Oscars, he did an interview where it seemed like he was on a lot more than just alcohol.
I believe whatever he felt that he did, he had the right to do.
I also felt there were 3 losers in one fight. He didn't know, being Chris Rock. He didn't want to do what he had to do, being Will Smith. And she did nothing, being Jada. I don't have a dog in this fight. There were 3 losers in this fight. And what happened is very sad. I hope everybody's okay. Like, I really reach out to you guys. I hope you're okay.
The comments were all pointing out how fast he was speaking and his changing accents, and it's clear a lot of people agreed on the reason he was acting like that. Fast forward just a couple months and Liam appeared on the Impulsive podcast. The host of the show is Logan Paul, a YouTuber turned wrestler and entrepreneur who has a horrible reputation for scamming his fans and more. That alone could have been reason enough not to go on the show, but Liam decided to do it, and sadly it was a disaster. He said various things throughout the podcast that were seen as arrogant and angered One Direction fans, such as making a dig at Zayn and his relationship with model Gigi Hadid. In fact, a lot of the problem people took with it was how much he spoke ill of Zayn during the interview.
You can always look at the man for where he is and say, oh yeah, whatever, that guy's a dick, right? But at the end of the day, once you understand what he's been through to get to that point, and also whether or not he actually even wanted to be there, and also I'm so misunderstood by myself more than anyone. Like, I don't know what I'm doing or why I'm here. It's like, I can't sit here and dick on him because of whatever. And listen, I don't agree with any of his actions. I can't commend some of the things that he's done. I can't be on his side for that. What I can say is I understand, and I hope that your only hope is that at some point in their life, the person on the other end of the phone wants to receive the help that you're willing to give them. That's all I'll say.
There was another clip from the episode that went viral because of how Liam was trying to portray himself.
Have any of the boys in the group ever actually come to blows? Not almost come to blows, but actually?
We came very close at points. I think it was well known within the band that I don't like taking shit
right.
At a certain point. I made it very obvious. I'm not going to tell you how. And there was one moment where there was an argument backstage, and one member in particular threw me up a wall. So I said to him, if you don't remove those hands, there's a high likelihood you'll never use them again.
You can see why that caught so much traction. The other big thing that didn't sit right with people was that Liam came across as boastful and diminishing of his ex-bandmates' achievements.
Part of the reason One Direction was made was because of Simon's promise to me that in 2 years, I'll make this work for you.
Wow.
So he kind of started with my face and then worked around the rest. I've never told that story before.
You were the inception.
I was the honorary member of One Direction, yes. And he told me that story himself in his house.
Wow.
So I came out the band and said, my dad called me, oh yeah, here we go, you're going to go solo. It's been his dream since I was a kid, his dream. And I said, I'll only do it if the right song comes along, otherwise I'm not bothered. I don't want to tarnish the legacy I have already. I've done something that's already worldwide famous and I've got fucking gold records for it. I said, I don't need to do this. It's not important to me. Ed Sheeran wrote me this song and I thought, oh shit. Oh no. Here we bloody well go again. Here we go, boys. Pull your shorts up, off we pop. And yeah, we did the first song, billion streams. I think it outsold everybody within the band and I was the last to go. And I never expected that. And I'm sat there going, shit. It's gone rather well, hasn't it?
You could do it.
Then how'd you go from there? I mean, listen, I've had a fantastic career. I think to date, at the moment, I've done 6.5 billion streams worldwide, right? It's amazing. I'm so happy for it.
Now the thing is, Liam wasn't an egocentric or mean-spirited person. In fact, he was the opposite. But even good people say regrettable things when they're not in the right headspace. At this point, Liam was in a bad way. And if you didn't notice, he had a glass of whiskey in his hand throughout most of the podcast.
Hey, what are you drinking?
A little whiskey.
After this episode was released, a barrage of hate came his way. The internet can be a very unforgiving place, and he was dragged for everything he said. So much so that he took a step away from the spotlight for a while to focus on himself, only returning the following year. When he re-emerged, he looked very different. He'd clearly undergone some cosmetic procedures, which put him under scrutiny all over again, but he regained some goodwill with fans after he posted this video to his YouTube channel.
And I just need to take a little bit of time out for myself, actually, because I kind of became somebody who I didn't really recognize anymore, and I'm sure you guys didn't either. I think for me, a lot of what I just said just came from the wrong place. I was so angry at what was going on around me, and instead of taking a look inwards, I decided to look outwards at everybody else. And I just think, yeah, I just took it out on everybody else, which is just wrong, really. And my own frustrations with my own career and where I kind of landed, I took shots at everybody else, which is wrong. So obviously, I want to apologise for that in the first instance, because that's definitely not me. I kind of had to go away to kind of get better, let's say. The whole thing up to that point of where it was just a kind of scramble to stay relevant, let's say.
He was very honest and upfront here, and he seemed to be in a much better place, adding later that he'd been sober for 6 months. However, from everything that's happened since, we know that didn't last.
What is happening, sir?
We have a guest drunk with drugs and alcohol. When he is conscious, he's breaking everything in the room.
You said alcohol and drugs?
This is correct.
What's the hotel called?
Casa Sur Palermo. You need to send someone soon, because I don't know if the guest's life is in danger. He's in a room with a balcony, and we're afraid he could do something that threatens his life.
This was one of 2 911 calls made by staff at the Casa Sur Hotel in Argentina on the night of the 16th of October 2024. The guest they were talking about was of course Liam. He had come to Argentina with his girlfriend to support Niall at one of his concerts, while he waited for his US visa to be approved.
Niall Horan's playing down there. And I think we might just go and say, hello! It's been a while since me and Niall have spoken. We've got a lot to talk about. And I would like to square up a couple things with the boy. No bad vibes or nothing like that, but just, we need to talk.
Videos of him at the concert on October 2nd did the rounds because of the way he was behaving. He seemed to be playing up for the cameras and fans, which was viewed as him taking attention away from Niall and his performance. Given many people had grown to dislike him after his impulsive appearance, the clips gave them a new reason to pile onto him, and he got relentlessly harassed online. And sadly, Liam's stay in Argentina only got worse from there. His PR person resigned, leaving him without any media representation, and just days later, his ex-fiancée Maya Henry, who he was with after Cheryl, issued a cease and desist against him for repeatedly contacting her, her friends, and her family.
Because he would always message me ever since we broke up, like, oh, I'm not well. He would always play with death and be like, well, I'm gonna die. I'm not doing well.
After this, he got more bad news when his record label Universal dropped him. Liam's music career had been struggling for a while, and he and his label weren't seeing eye to eye on the vision for a second album, so they decided to axe him. Then, as if things weren't already bad enough, he ran into issues with his visa application, meaning he couldn't travel to the US as planned. His girlfriend caught their flight to Florida without him, while he stayed in Argentina to sort out his visa. So at that point, Liam was alone, with a visa in limbo, a music career in jeopardy, and a cease and desist on his table, and the pressure caused him to slip back into old habits. He moved into a new hotel where he got heavily intoxicated, and according to other guests, he caused a lot of commotion in the hotel on the night of the 16th. One woman gave a statement saying, "One of my friends was due to get his suite, so the hotel staff were a little on edge because he still hadn't checked out at 4:30 p.m, but also because of his behavior. I came into the hotel and he was waiting by the elevator, and it was so clear he wanted someone to recognize him. There was something a bit desperate about him. I was with my friends and we did know who he was, but none of us were that bothered. When the lift came, he suddenly said to us without any prompting, 'Yes, I'm Liam,' really drawing it out, and then said, 'Alright, come on you lot, get in the elevator with me. I love a cuddle.' I decided against it and waited for the next one. Shortly after, the woman reportedly saw him again in the lobby with his laptop, and she said after reading an email, he screamed, 'Fuck this shit,' and smashed it to pieces. She asked if he was okay, and he grunted and replied saying, 'I used to be in a boy band. That's why I'm so fucked up.' It was at this point that hotel staff made the first 911 call. Later, another guest at the hotel heard loud banging noises coming from his room and saw staff entering and exiting it. Police arrived at the hotel soon after, and they heard a crashing sound come from the courtyard, followed by screams. Liam had fallen from the 3rd floor balcony of his hotel room into the courtyard below. He suffered devastating injuries to his skull, limbs, and abdomen, and tragically passed away on impact, meaning emergency services couldn't do anything to help when they got there. Upon investigating his room, authorities found his TV smashed, as well as a table covered in white powder. After word got out, many of his fans in the local area began surrounding the hotel, and Liam's body was taken away in a red ambulance for an autopsy. The subsequent report showed that Liam was under the influence of alcohol, a prescription antidepressant, and a substance called pink cocaine at the time of his death. Recently, 3 individuals have been charged in connection with his death, one of which being an Argentinian waiter who's been accused of supplying Liam with drugs. Apparently, they first connected before Liam attended Niall's concert, as he wanted something to take for the event. Authorities have now determined that Liam's fall from the balcony wasn't intentional, but a result of him being in a state of semi or total unconsciousness due to everything he'd taken. In the wake of his death, his family, girlfriend, and former bandmates have all released statements mourning his passing. Liam was just 31 years old and had a full life ahead of him, which makes this all the more upsetting. It goes to show how fame, especially at such a young age, can really mess with someone, and it's a warning for how dangerous a dependency on drugs and alcohol can truly be. The signs were there for a long time that Liam needed help, but when he acted out due to his addictions and poor mental state, he was mocked and ridiculed. It makes you wonder if things could have been different if he just had a little more support.